Mike Sabin.
Thank you, Mr Speaker, and I'll take this as my first opportunity to do it officially, but just to acknowledge your promotion to the position of Speaker, and I hope that goes very well for you, sir. The Organised Crime and Anti-Corruption Legislation Bill is an omnibus bill that seeks to amend 12 acts. And I'll pick up on the points that the Honourable member has just made, Annette King has just made, about the fact that New Zealand is not immune from some of the most abhorrent organised crime that we see going on around the world. And as the member has rightly pointed out, people trafficking is one of them. And organised crime globally, sir, obviously knows no boundaries. And as the world moves forward and we become more technologically advanced, so too do the criminal activities and organised crime and corruption, sir. And so this bill really is an important part of New Zealand's obligations to meet international and United Nations conventions in terms of strengthening our ability as a nation to ensure that organised crime, organised criminal entities, corruption, money laundering, people trafficking and so forth can be fought on the many levels that it needs to be, sir, because more and more often New Zealand is being called upon to cooperate and to participate in international inquiries and investigations. And sir, one of the opportunities that organised criminal entities globally look for in terms of their enterprises is the gaps between different jurisdictions, and they exploit those gaps, and they exploit the fact that some countries do not talk well amongst one another, share information well amongst one another, and where those gaps exist is where there are opportunities. Now clearly, sir, this is something that this bill and these international conventions that the bill seeks to address will go to the heart of. The organised crime and corruption is increasingly more sophisticated, and it's fair to say, I think, sir, that New Zealand does enjoy a reputation as being, as Annette King did point out, one of the least corrupt countries in the world, but that's not going to stop people trying. And essentially, certainly we've seen it in drug trafficking, where New Zealand over the course of the last 10 or 15 years has become an end-user destination, has become quite a significant part of drug trafficking, say in methamphetamine. And where there is methamphetamine transactions in large scale and multiple millions and billions, in fact, we also see a lot of money laundering and so forth going on underneath that. And so these criminal entities and networks are able to overlap and work with one another in a very, very sophisticated way, something that New Zealand enforcement agencies have to work very, very hard to, I think, combat, sir, and it's very hard to do that without the appropriate legislative framework. So just running over a couple of the key points in the time that I have left. A couple of the key measures in this bill, sir, is requiring banks to report all international wire transactions over $1,000 or more, and all physical cash transactions of $10,000 or more to the Financial Intelligence Unit within the police. Redrafting the money laundering offence to specify the intent to conceal is not required. Introducing new offences to address identity crime, including selling or passing on unlawfully obtained identity information, something that certainly is increasingly more sophisticated and in common use. Amending people trafficking offences so that it applies to such activity in New Zealand, not just when victims are moved in or out of this country. Amending the Policing Act 2008 to expressly provide police with power to share information with its international counterparts. And as I mentioned, sir, I think this is one of the areas that these more sophisticated organised criminal entities absolutely exploit, is the gaps that do exist between jurisdictions and their inability to share information, or the lack of capability in doing so, and certainly the lack of sound legal nexus between jurisdictions. Revising the foreign bribery offence, including clarifying the circumstances in which a corporation is liable for foreign bribery, and increasing penalties for bribery and corruption in the private sector to bring them into line with public sector bribery offences. It just runs over, Sir, a couple of the key points. It's an important piece of legislation. I think it's a big chunk of work that amends a number of 12 acts, as we say, Sir. I look forward to hearing submissions as this process proceeds. Thank you, Sir.
Chris Hipkins.
Thank you very